Chapter 161. Everyone watched wide-eyed as Dustin administered the fiery beetle. The moment it entered Sheila's body, the effect was immediate. The cold air around her began to dissipate, and in less than 3 minutes, her body had gone from icy cold to being at a regular temperature. She gained color in her cheeks, and her breathing steadied. Then, under the disbelieving gaze of the crowd, she whimpered and came around. "She's awake." Astonishment was evident on the crowd's faces. The fact that a rascal like Dustin was able to cure Sheila of her condition when even drive Shane was unable to was beyond them. It was shocking indeed. How is this possible? Xavier's eyes widened, bewildered. How could an unknown doctor possess such skills? How did he do it? Claudia was equally amazed and terrified. She struggled to come to terms with how something she had always thought was evil had healing properties. "I never knew that the mystic arts had such amazing effects." Malcolm's eyes lit up as he marveled at Dustin's skills. His unconventional means of healing were undoubtedly a groundbreaker. Malcolm, who had initially thought that he no longer had any room for improvement in the medical field, finally found new hope. "Sheila, how are you feeling? Are you experiencing any discomfort?" Caden and Lily were both happily surprised. They had not held high hopes, to begin with, and they were more than pleased to be met with such a miracle. "Dad, Mom, how weird. I no longer feel the coldness within me. It's as though it has vanished." Sheila patted herself all over, a surprised expression on her face. She had never felt so warm before. "That's great. That's absolutely great. Thank you so much for saving her." Lily was so ecstatic that she was about to bow to Dustin to thank him. "Mrs. Murray, please, there is no need to bow." Dustin reached out to hold her up. He was not used to such unbridled expressions of gratitude. "Was it you who saved me, kind sir?" Sheila was delighted to see Dustin. It had just been a day, and they had met again. Was it not fate? "Sheila, it's all thanks to Mr. Rhys here that you're still alive. If not for him, you might very well still be unconscious," Lily remarked. "Thank you, kind sir." Sheila bowed deeply. "You're welcome. After all, I get paid for saving you." Dustin smiled. "So is my daughter completely cured, young man?" Caden asked cautiously. He had consulted many experienced and well-known doctors regarding Sheila's condition, and all of them had expressed that the condition could only be suppressed, not completely eradicated. So he had to be sure. "I wouldn't say that she's completely cured of it, but she won't be bothered by it for the next 10 years, Dustin guaranteed. "Why is it only for 10 years? Can't you get rid of it completely?" Caden frowned. "It's permafrost. It can't be eliminated so easily. Unless you are able to get some extremely rare herbs that can improve her circulation and metabolism, the only solution is to use the fiery beetle to extend her life, and a fiery beetle only has a lifespan of 10 years, Dustin clarified. 10 years is good enough. At least it will give us more time to find other means of solution." Lily smiled. It was already a pleasant surprise that her daughter's life had been prolonged by 10 years. She dared not ask for much more. "Mr. Murray, now that your daughter's life is not on the line, is it time you deliver your end of the deal?" Dustin went straight to the point. "It's the gozoroberry you're after, isn't it? Please proceed to the lounge." "I'll be there in a while," Caden said lightly. Chapter 162. Caden gestured to the butler, who immediately got the message. "This way, please, Mr. Rhys." "Sure." Dustin nodded and followed the butler to the lounge. He took a seat and waited. It was a long wait. It wasn't until he finished his third cup of tea that Caden appeared with several men in tow. "I really appreciate you saving my daughter, young man. Here's a $10 million check. Consider this your pay." Caden sat down and motioned to one of his men, who presented a check to Dustin. "What? Thank you for your kind intentions, Mr. Murray, but this isn't what I want." Dustin stared at the check, puzzled. "It doesn't matter whether you want it. What matters is that this is what I'm paying you for a job well done." Caden sipped on his tea. What's that supposed to mean? Dustin's eyes narrowed. Don't you get it? The Gozora isn't yours. All you're getting is the money. Caden spelled it out in plain words. Mr. Murray, we had a deal. I cure your daughter, and you give me the Gozora. Why are you going back on your words? Dustin's expression darkened. What was the meaning of all this? Were they turning their backs on him once they no longer had use of him? Had he just been taken advantage of? The Gozora is not only a precious herb used for healing, but it is also remarkably beneficial to practitioners of martial arts. Don't you know that, young man? Caden suddenly asked. So, it would be a waste of precious resources to give you such a valuable treasure, so I made the decision to give it to someone else, Caden justified himself. You gave it to someone else. Who? Dustin's brows furrowed deeply. Who else but me? Xavier made his way in haughtily. He had in his hands a small, red, wooden box that held the Gozora. Hey, buddy. Uncle Caden's given me the Gozora. It's mine now. Xavier patted the box smugly with a sneer. So what if the rascal stole the limelight today? Ultimately, I'm the one who benefited from it. At the end of the day, he's just a lowly peasant. Xavier thought. Caden Murray. You are an influential person with high social standing, and you carry the honor of the Murray family with you. How could you go back on your words and betray someone who has helped you? Are you not afraid that you'd be ridiculed? Dustin slammed his hand on the table and stood up. He was truly angry. He could understand Caden's previous change of mind, as it was a matter pertaining to his daughter's health condition. Malcolm had a reputation for having great expertise in his field, which naturally made him more deserving of trust on Caden's end. But now, it was a different case altogether. Caden was going back on his word after Dustin had saved Sheila. That was downright outrageous. Ridicule. Ha! Who'd dare to ridicule me? Do you really think that a few words from you would be able to tarnish the Murray family's reputation? You're really thinking highly of yourself. Caden scoffed. He looked at Dustin as though he were a fool. Are you really going to disregard your honor? An icy glint flashed in Dustin's eyes. Cut the crap. Take the money and scram, or I'll get my men to throw you out. Caden ran out of patience. How dare this peasant go against him? What? Are you threatening me now? Dustin lifted his gaze. So what if we're threatening you? I'm warning you, Rhys. You better get out of here now, or I'll make you. Xavier roared. At that, a group of well-trained guards rushed in bearing malice. It seems like they came prepared. Chapter 163. Ha ha ha. Dustin was so infuriated that he laughed out loud when he saw the guards rush in. Anyone would have assumed that such a prestigious family would at least put in some effort to uphold their reputation. Who would have guessed that they would act so shamelessly? Not only did they go back on their word, they even betrayed someone who had offered them help in their time of need. And now that things didn't go their way, they resorted to violence and threats. How tyrannical and despicable. Caden Murray. Are you about to repay kindness with ingratitude? Dustin's gaze frosted over, and an imposing air came over him. Young man, you'd be smart to back off now. $10 million is enough to last you a lifetime. You better not get greedy. Caden warned. People in his position were only interested in what benefited them. Naturally, he would place connections with the Horst family above an unknown doctor like Dustin. Am I being greedy, or are you the one taking advantage of me? Do you really think that I'm an easy target whom you can mess around with however you please? Dustin retorted sharply. Uncle Caden, let's not waste time on this scumbag. Just throw him out and get rid of this eyesore. Xavier got impatient. He was green with envy at how Sheila had called Dustin, kind sir. She had never addressed him as such. I'll give you one last chance, lad. Take this money and leave, and I'll pretend that nothing has ever happened today. Caden gave his ultimatum. And I'm giving you your last chance to. Give me the Gozora, or you'll be sorry. Dustin threatened authoritatively. Ha! You're really making things hard for everyone, aren't you? Finally, Kader could hold it in no longer. He exchanged a look with Xavier. Throw him out. Do whatever you like. Just make sure that he doesn't die. No problem. Tie him up and throw him out. Break his legs if he resists. Xavier sneered as he waved the guards over. Yes, sir. The guards rushed up at his command. Insolent bastards. Dustin seethed. He met the guards head on. With just a few simple swings of his arm, he delivered slap after slap to the guards' faces. They cried out as they were sent sprawling across the lounge. None of them was a match for Dustin. Huh. Caden and Xavier were surprised at what they saw. They had not expected that a mere doctor like him would be so skilled in combat techniques. So it turns out that he's a practitioner of the martial arts. No wonder he has the guts to behave so pompously. Xavier scoffed as he slowly took off his coat. It's been a long time since I've loosened up. Well, let's have some fun today, shall we? With that, Xavier got ready to attack. Hold it right there. Lily, Sheila, and a few other people burst in hastily. Caden, what's going on? Dustin saved Sheila. Why are you guys attacking him? Lily questioned. This is none of your business, Lily. Bring Sheila back to her room to get some rest. Caden frowned. He had brought Dustin to the lounge because he didn't want his wife and daughter to see what they were doing. But in the end, they still caught wind of things and came over. Is this because of the Gozora berry, Caden? We made Dustin a promise. Why are you backing out on your words? If word got out, how do you think it's going to affect our reputation? Lily got the picture the instant she saw the red box. What would a woman know? Get out. Caden was ashamed, but he lashed out at Lily with his frustration. Dad. You've always told me to be an honest person, but what are you doing now? Sheila took a step forward and demanded, Dustin just saved my life, but not only are you not grateful towards him, but you've also resorted to using violence against him. Since when were you so unreasonable? Caden's expression changed when he heard her words. He couldn't care less about what others thought about him, but he couldn't disregard how his daughter saw him. He had always kept his dirty deeds hidden from his daughter. It was unfortunate that he was caught red-handed today. Sheila, Uncle Caden had nothing to do with this. I was the one who wanted the Gozora berry. Xavier stood up to take the blame. I'm just one step away from advancing my skills to the next level, and a Gozora berry is exactly what will give me the extra push to help me progress. That's why I shamelessly requested it from Uncle Caden. Even so, you should not have resorted to violence. Sheila scowled. Sheila, you don't understand. I had planned to buy the Gozora berry from him for $10 million, but not only did this fella here reject my proposal, he even insulted me. I really couldn't take it. Xavier argued indignantly. I don't care. Since you've agreed to give Dustin the Gozora berry, then you can't just back out at the 11th hour. Sheila reached out, snatched the box from Xavier's hands, and passed it to Dustin. You. At a loss, Xavier could only look to Caden helplessly. Caden looked none too pleased, but in the end, he only shook his head. He had an image to keep in front of his daughter, so they could only let it slide. Dustin, I'm really sorry that you were startled. My father wasn't in the right state of mind for a while back. There. I apologize on his behalf for offending you. I hope you'll find it in you to forgive him. Sheila said apologetically. Seeing the sincerity in her gaze, Dustin was appeased. It was true that Caden was despicable, but he had to admit that Lily and Sheila were both very understanding and reasonable. Mr. Rhys, please have the Gozora berry. From now on, the Murrays are indebted to you. Lily said. Please do not feel indebted to me. All I ask is that Mr. Murray would not take revenge on me, Dustin remarked lightly. No, he won't. My father's not like that. Sheila shook her hand and turned to look at Caden, throwing him a threatening glance. Caden had no other choice but to nod. What happened today was just a misunderstanding, please don't take offense. If that is the case, thank you. I have other arrangements made, so I'll be taking my leave now. Dustin turned to leave. Dustin, will we meet again? Sheila suddenly asked. We'll leave that to fate. Dustin walked out the door with a wave. Before he got out the door, he heard a low voice by his ear saying, You're lucky Sheila came in the nick of time, you scoundrel. She just saved your sorry ass. You're the one who lucked out that Sheila came when she did. Otherwise, you'd be a dead man by now. Dustin left with a scoff. Chapter 164. When Dustin returned to Peaceful Medical Center, he found a silver Bentley parked right at the entrance. He walked in to see a lady with a beguiling face. Her shapely figure and enchanting temperament, matched with her bewitching smile, made her nothing less than a top-tier seductress. What brings you here, Ms. Harmon? Dustin was slightly startled. Though they were already familiar with each other, he still found her stunning every time he saw her. Why, to see you, of course. You're such a busy person, and you rarely ever come to see me. Surely you can't forbid me from coming here to meet you. Natasha said begrudgingly. That's not what I meant. Right. How's it going with Immortunal? Are its effects as expected? Dustin changed the topic awkwardly. It's much better than expected. I've come here especially to thank you. Immortunal has way better effects than Eternamax. I believe that once Immortunal is launched, the big bucks will start rolling in no time. Natasha smiled. Is that so? That's great. Dustin smiled too. Here. Have a look at the contract. Natasha pulled out a document from her bag and handed it to him. What contract? Dustin looked at her quizzically. You came up with the prescription for Immortunal. I can't take advantage of your labor. Let's just take this as a collaboration between us. All future profits from Immortunal will be split evenly. Natasha pushed the contract toward him. I don't think there's a need for that, Ms. Harmon. I have no use for Immortunal. I'd be happy just knowing that it's of help to you. Dustin shook his head. Are you daft? You're rejecting money. I'm giving it to you, so just take it. I might lose sleep over it if you don't. Natasha rolled her eyes. Well, all right. Dustin saw no way around it when she put things that way. He could only nod and sign the papers. Oh, that's right, I have another present for you, Natasha suddenly exclaimed. A present? What is it? Dustin was curious. Close your eyes first. Natasha looked like she was hiding a secret. Oh. Dustin closed his eyes without giving it too much thought. The next second, he caught a whiff of a pleasant fragrance. All of a sudden, he felt warm lips on his. Dustin froze instantly. He was so stunned that he felt like he'd been struck by lightning. Had Natasha just stolen a kiss from him? He reflexively pulled back, but a pair of arms were hooked around his neck, and he failed to break free. The alluring fragrance at such close proximity caused his mind to go blank. At the same time, a Mercedes-Benz had just pulled up at the entrance. The car door opened, and out came a beautiful woman with an elegant bearing. It was Dahlia. She had come to apologize to Dustin. She had mulled things over for an entire day and night and came to the conclusion that she should apologize to him. It would be hard to bring herself to say it, but it was absolutely necessary. So she drew a deep breath, mustered up all the courage she had, and pushed the door open. Deuce. She had barely opened her mouth to call out to him when she saw a scene that she likely would not forget. She froze on the spot for a moment. After some time, Natasha, whose cheeks were flushed, finally let go of Dustin when he ran out of breath. Though she was a strong and independent woman, this was the first time Natasha had ever done something like this, to steal a kiss from another person. That's my first kiss. It's my gift to you. Natasha smiled charmingly, her eyes full of tenderness and affection. She looked immensely seductive with her flushed face. Chapter 165. Dustin ran his fingers over his lips, savoring the fragrance that still lingered. He blushed. How embarrassing to have a kiss stolen in broad daylight. HMPH. A disdainful scoff came from the door. When Dustin looked up, all he saw was a familiar figure walking away indignantly. After she got in the car, Dahlia stepped on the gas and disappeared down the road in the blink of an eye. Was that Dahlia? Natasha asked teasingly. Looks like it. Dustin nodded blankly. Aren't you going after her to explain what she just saw? Natasha lifted a brow. What's there to explain? We're divorced. It's not like I'm cheating on her. Dustin stood his ground. You've got a point there. Natasha smiled. You're mine now, why would you need to explain to anyone else? She thought to herself. As they were conversing, another car pulled up at the entrance. The car door opened, and in came a paunchy man. It was Malcolm Shane. He took in his surroundings as he entered. Hey, isn't this Drive? Shane. Why is he here? Natasha was amazed. Dr. Malcolm Shane was a big name across the nation, and he was considered one of the best in the field of acupuncture. No matter where he went, he was always highly sought after by the rich and powerful. Mr. Rhys. So it's true that you're here. Malcolm's gaze quickly fixed on Dustin the moment he came in the door. He beamed brightly. Dr. Shane, it's such an honor to have you here. May I know what brought you here today? Dustin was puzzled. Mr. Rhys, the treatment you performed with the venomous insect was truly an eye-opener. It's also the reason I'm here today. I'd like to seek your advice and guidance on the matter. I hope you can impart some of your wisdom. Malcolm humbly sought knowledge from Dustin. Even Natasha was astounded. The great Drive, Shane, a leading figure in the medical field, was here to seek advice and knowledge from Dustin. Were her eyes playing tricks on her? She knew how proficient Dustin was in his medical skills, but to have Drive Shane ask for his guidance was still a shocker. Dr. Shane, you're flattering me. You're my senior, with many more years of experience under your belt. I'm not fit to offer you any advice, but I'll do my best to help you wherever needed. Dustin waved his hand repeatedly. For someone of Malcolm's stature to come to him for advice was enough proof of his sincerity. Any other person in his position would never find it in them to humble themselves enough to seek guidance from someone like Dustin. Don't be modest, Mr. Rhys. Your medical skills are one of a kind. I'm ashamed of my inadequacy, especially regarding methods of the mystic arts. I really admire it. Malcolm hesitated. If you're interested in that, I have a book here that might be of help. Dustin went to a drawer and pulled out a yellowed ancient manuscript. This manuscript here records various methods of how the mystic arts can be used for medical purposes. You can study it if you wish. Awesome. I'm really grateful, Mr. Rhys. Malcolm was elated. He took the manuscript and started flipping through it. The more he read, the more excited he got. The knowledge recorded was so profound and unfathomable that he completely lost himself in it. Dr. Shane, Dustin gave you a book, are you not going to return the favor? Natasha teasingly prompted. Dustin might be generous, but as his future wife, she could not let people take advantage of him. Ah, right. I nearly forgot. Malcolm patted himself all over and finally produced a set of golden needles. Mr. Rhys, these golden needles are made of mystical gold. They're exceptionally durable and impervious to fire and water. I've had them for 10 years. They're considered rarities, I hope you'll accept them. Thank you, Dr. Shane. Before Dustin could reject them, Natasha had already received them with a smile. Golden needles made of mystical gold. These are the objects of countless doctors' dreams. They were practically a treasure. She saw no reason to reject them. Chapter 166. Malcolm was surprised that Natasha actually accepted the needles so readily. Was she not going to at least act modest by declining his offer? Before I forget, Dr. Shane, since you have a keen eye for valuables, I have something I'd like you to help me evaluate. Natasha requested after accepting the golden needles. Oh. What is it? Please let me have a look, Malcolm said confidently. Here. Natasha showed him a green pill. Malcolm took the pill from her and nodded with satisfaction after having a good look at it. This crystal clear pill has a bright luster to it, and it gives off a distinct fragrance. From the looks of it, it's quite remarkable. What good judgment, Dr. Shane. Natasha gave him a thumbs up. This pill is called amortunol. It can enhance a person's beauty, promote longevity, and has anti-aging effects. If you're not worried that we've spiked it, you may give it a try, Dr. Shane. So what if it's spiked? What fear have I of poison? Malcolm smiled proudly and swallowed the amortunol right then and there. The moment he popped it in, he felt a cool and refreshing sensation enter his bloodstream, reaching his limbs. For a moment, Malcolm felt a charge running through him. He was instantly rejuvenated as an inexplicable sense of clarity washed through his entire being. The palpable feeling that all his exhaustion had been swept away caused him to feel much more energized. And most importantly, it was not just a momentary sensation. After the medical constituents entered his bloodstream, they continued to fuel him with vitality. He was sure that if the pill was taken for an extended period, it would significantly transform a person. Brilliant. This is downright brilliant. It's a treasure in itself. When he perceived just how exceptional amortunol was, he had nothing but praise for it. Young lady, where did you get this amortunol from? Do you have more of it? Would it be possible for you to sell me a few? Malcolm's eyes lit up. He rarely got so worked up over things, but he really could not hold back his excitement. The effects he experienced from taking amortunol were too amazing. Even the vital item that Dr. Watkins gave him could not compare to this precious pill. Dr. Shane, amortunol is still in the production stage. We're not ready to sell it to the public yet, but if you like it, I can give you some. Natasha smiled. Ha ha ha. What a generous young lady. If you don't mind me asking, who is the genius who produced amortunol? I would really appreciate it if you could introduce me to him. Malcolm beamed happily. Dr. Shane, the brain behind it all is right in front of you. Natasha smiled suggestively. Do you mean, Mr. Rhys is the one who produced amortunol? Malcolm's eyes widened. It was important to note that healing skills and producing pharmaceutical products were two different skill sets. Though they might look like branches from a similar field of study, the fact was that there was a world of difference between the two. Being adept in medical skills didn't guarantee that one had the skills to produce medicine, and vice versa. His difference in expertise from Dr. Watkins was the greatest example of that. He was proficient in medical skills, whereas Watkins was adroit in producing medicine. It was extremely rare to find someone who was seasoned in both fields, and all the existing masters were at least in their 70s. To have a youngster in his 20s be so skilled in both fields was unheard of. It was unimaginable. I just lucked out and found a prescription formula, that's all. Dustin smiled. You're being too modest, Mr. Rhys. Even with a prescription formula, it would be no easy feat to produce such superb medicine. You have exceptional talent, Mr. Rhys. It's an honor to have met you today, and I'm deeply impressed. At that, Malcolm bowed deeply to Dustin. He was so skilled in both treating patients and producing medicine at such a young age. He was truly a genius. You flatter me, Dr. Shane. Dustin immediately reached out to hold him up. I wonder if you'd be interested to collaborate with us. Dr. Shane. Natasha asked out of the blue. Collaborate? How so? Malcolm's curiosity was piqued. You're a giant in the medical profession, and that makes you a symbol of authority. If you'd be willing to promote amortunol, I'm sure that it would boost sales. Natasha explained with a smile. Malcolm had connections, and he was also a person of high importance in the medical industry. To have someone like him endorsing amortunol would guarantee a steady stream of high-ranking officials and nobility chasing after it. You really have a mind for business, young lady. But tell me, why should I agree to it? Malcolm wasn't one to be fooled. As long as you agree to it, not only will we give you a mortunol for free year-round, but you will also get priority supply to it. You've just had a taste of it, you should know very well how effective it is. You'd be saving a lot of lives by agreeing to it. This is an incredibly meritorious and beneficial deed. As someone of your high moral standing and reputation, surely you wouldn't want such a precious treasure to go unnoticed, am I right? Natasha coaxed persuasively. It really does sound like a good deal. All right, I'll work with you just this once then. Malcolm nodded. Thoughtfully. After all, he had received the ancient manuscript from Dustin. This was the least he could do to repay him. Thank you, Dr. Shane. We appreciate it. Oh, Immortunol will be officially launched in 2 days. Please come and give us some moral support then. Natasha smiled. Sure. Malcolm agreed heartily, unaware that he had agreed to something that he might regret in the future. Over in a mansion with a lake view. How is it, Mr. Wangley? Do we have the results yet? Quentin stood up to welcome the white-browed man. He had lost sleep for the past 2 days because of Eternamax. After much consideration, the best way out was to join forces with the Hummers. Mr. Harmon, Sir Hummer has agreed to join forces, but only under one condition. The old man picked up a cup of tea and drank it hastily. What condition? Quentin asked impatiently. Sir Hummer hopes that you'll take this opportunity to put pressure on Natasha from all sides and force her to step down from her position, Mr. Wangley explained. Ha ha ha. That is exactly what I intend to do. Quentin laughed aloud. He had always been overshadowed by Natasha, ever since they were children, so the family had never placed any importance on him. Now that Eternamax had been lost, the family bore the grudges. If he grabbed hold of this opportunity to recover the family's losses and prove his worth, there was a high chance that he might take over Natasha's position. Mr. Harmon, the Hummers have agreed to join forces, but we still need money to buy Eternamax. How many boxes are you planning to purchase? Mr. Wangley queried. The more the better, of course. Put in all the money we have on hand, and if that's not enough, then go around and borrow some more. Quentin decided boldly. Isn't that a little too risky? Mr. Wangley doubted his decision. How is it risky? We have the market research report for Eternamax, and it shows very promising results. Countless millionaires are after it. So if we stock up on it now and sell it at a high price in the future, we'll surely make a huge profit. Quentin laughed exuberantly. The return will always be proportionate to the investment made. By then, his worth would have increased 10 to 20-fold. Wouldn't he be the one to call the shots in the family? Even Natasha Harmon would have to submit to him then. Chapter 167. 2 days later, the Hummers held the official press conference for the launch of Eternamax at the Hillview Hotel. News about it had spread for several days, and with the Hummers' unceasing effort to promote it, there was a great deal of discussion surrounding it. Such an amazing drug with beautifying properties that could also improve longevity drew the attention of countless people. So the press conference, which was grandly decorated, bustled with activity. There was a never-ending stream of guests that made their way in. Right around noon, a silver Bentley pulled up at the entrance of the Hillview Hotel. When the car door opened, Natasha slowly made her way out of the car, her arms around Dustin's. As always, she was the center of attention wherever she went. It was hard for anyone to take their eyes off her shapely figure and alluring face. Dustin, who was clad in a 3-piece suit, seemed to have gone through a thorough makeover. He looked handsome and suave, and carried himself with great poise. Natasha, why are you here? Quentin and Mr. Wangley caught sight of them and approached. If you can be here, then so can I. Natasha answered nonchalantly. We're here because we received an invitation from Sir Hummer. Did you receive an invitation too? Quentin asked with a faint, sardonic smile. Of course, he knew that Edwin would never have given Natasha an invitation. I'm not here for Edwin's press conference, so naturally, I do not need an invitation. Natasha shrugged. If you're not here for the press conference, then why are you here? Quentin didn't quite get the idea. Oh, it totally slipped my mind to inform you that I'm having a press conference for a new drug launch today too. Same day and location as Edwin Hummer's, but his is on basement level 3, while mine's on the 3rd floor. I've made sure to steer clear of him. Natasha dropped the shocking news on him. What? You're having a press conference too? Quentin was startled. He had sent men to keep an eye on Natasha for the past few days, and they had not reported any action on her end. Why was she suddenly having a press conference? And at the same date and location as Edwin's? Was that not a blatant sign of provocation? Natasha Harmon. What exactly are you up to? You have nothing to your name, so where on earth do you get your courage to challenge Edwin Hummer? Quentin was equally shocked and suspicious. This isn't something that you should be worried about, Quentin. If you've got time to spare, you should consider more for yourself, Natasha said casually. What's that supposed to mean? Quentin frowned. I heard that you've purchased Eternamax in bulk, and plan to resell it at a higher price to earn some quick cash. Natasha asked. So what if I have? You can't forbid me from making money just because you refuse to do so. Quentin argued. Just because we're from the same family, I'd advise you to do yourself a favor and sell off those Eternamax at a low price before the press conference starts. If you don't, you'll lose everything you have before you even know it. Natasha smiled profoundly. Utter nonsense. Eternamax is selling like hotcakes right now. There are a whole lot of people out there who are willing to pay good money for it and yet are unable to get their hands on them. I think that's just your jealousy talking. Quentin scoffed. It's up to you to heed my advice. Natasha couldn't be bothered to tell him more. She hooked her arm around Dustin's, and they both made their way into the hotel. HMPH. She really doesn't know where she stands. Quentin sneered as he watched them leave. From the way he saw it, Natasha was simply trying to complicate the situation in a final attempt to save herself. As time went on, more and more people of the elite class entered Hillview Hotel. The Hummer's press conference was filled with distinguished guests and was brimming with activity and excitement. The Harmon's press conference, however, painted a completely different picture. It was one of desolation and emptiness, with hardly any attendees. Apart from the staff and several bodyguards, there was basically no one else present. But Natasha wasn't bothered by the low turn-up. She sat there with Dustin, leisurely sipping on wine. Natasha. What are you up to? Two people rushed in. It was Jessica and Ruth. Why would you hold a press conference so suddenly without any prior preparation? Are you messing around? Jessica demanded the moment she walked in. I know what I'm doing. Natasha said calmly. You know what you're doing. What do you mean you know what you're doing? Have you seen the Hummer's press conference? The place is jam-packed with people. And look at what you have here. Not a person in sight. If word got out about this, what would people out there think about us Harmons? Jessica exclaimed out of frustration. Not only was the prescription formula for Eternamax stolen, but Natasha was also publicly challenging the Hummers at such a critical moment when she should have kept a low profile and laid low for the time being. Wasn't she just inviting humiliation upon herself? How ridiculous. Natasha, I don't get it. You have always been one to make plans in advance and are always in control of the situation. Why have you made such a foolish move today? Ruth was puzzled. Since they had a mortunal, all Natasha needed to do was advertise and give it some publicity, and they would easily be able to go against the Hummers. So out of everything that she could have done, why did she pick the course of action that was most arduous and least promising? Let's not get all worked up. Here. Have a seat and something to drink. You'll find out soon enough. Natasha was still full of confidence. HMPH. I'd like to see what tricks you have up your sleeves. Jessica huffed as she sat down. Right now, all she hoped for was that nobody would show up. At least then, No one would spread the news about this. If any word about the press conference got out, Harman Pharmaceuticals would end up as a laughing stock. Is this the Harman's press conference? Why don't I see anyone here at all? Just then, an obese elderly man walked in, his face full of doubt. Dr. Shane. Jessica was so astonished. Dr. Shane was a person who rarely appeared in public. What was he doing here? After all, Dr. Shane was someone who would even disregard a prime minister's invitation if he so wished. Dr. Shane, what brings you here? Jessica immediately got up to welcome him. However, he did not even spare her a glance and walked right past her. He jogged enthusiastically over to Dustin with a huge smile on his face. Mr. Rhys. You're here too. That ancient manuscript that you gave me was absolutely wonderful. It's just that there is some information in there that I'm struggling to grasp. Do you think you could shed some light on 'em, please? Jessica was struck dumb on the spot. A legendary figure in the medical field, the Great Drive, Shane, was actually seeking advice from a poor fellow like Dustin. What on earth was going on? Chapter 168. Jessica was frozen on the spot and struggled for words when she saw how humbly Malcolm was seeking guidance from Dustin. She had never once thought that the arrogant and haughty Drive, Malcolm Shane, had such a side to him. And most importantly, the person from whom he was modestly seeking advice was the boy toy, Dustin Rhys. It was mind-boggling indeed. I don't think I'm fit to give you any advice, Dr. Shane, but I'd gladly help wherever I can. We can both share our thoughts. Dustin smiled. Sure, we can do that. Now, have a look here. Malcolm took out the ancient manuscript and immediately dove into it. He started pointing out some of the areas that he had trouble understanding. Oh, this is actually quite simple. Take this for example. Put 100 different insects into a jar, and let them fight among themselves. After a month, open up the jar, and by then there will only be one remaining insect. The rest of them would have been eaten up by this surviving insect, and this will be the poisonous insect that you're after. Such a poisonous insect is usually used to cure other poisons in a method known as counteracting poison with another poison. As for this, it tells us how to neutralize the poisonous insect's venom. So what you need to do is smoke the licorice herb until it turns black, then combine it with some soybeans and extract the juice. Once the patient consumes the juice, it will neutralize the venom of the poisonous insect. But of course, this is only applicable to the venom of common poisonous insects. And this here. Dustin spoke eloquently on all the topics that Malcolm had questions about, and he managed to give him all the answers he needed. After hearing what Dustin had to say, Malcolm felt enlightened. Ha ha ha. You really are talented. I'm so impressed, and I've learned so much from you today. Malcolm was practically dancing with joy. He looked nothing like an expert or a person of status. What? Jessica watched bewildered. Was this really the haughty Drive, Shane, who was constantly contemptuous of others? With how he was behaving, he looked more like a schoolboy. Also, what was this mystic art that they were going on about? Would a renowned doctor like Dr. Shane actually take interest in something like that? Dr. Shane, if you have any other questions, you can discuss them with Dustin some other time. As for now, we need to talk about the press conference. Natasha interrupted them when she saw how excited they were over the discussion. Oh, right. Malcolm realized that his behavior was slightly inappropriate. He nodded and said, "Just let me know what you need me to do, young lady." "There's nothing you need to do. Just sit up there on the stage, and if you see anyone you recognize, you may greet them," Natasha replied with a smile. Is it that simple? Malcolm could not believe his ears. Yep, it's that simple. Natasha nodded. That's no problem at all. Malcolm went and took his seat on the stage and continued reading through the ancient manuscript. Natasha, so what if you manage to invite Drive Shane here? Do you think this will suffice to go against Edwin Hummer? Jessica asked in all earnestness. Though it was true that she was awestruck by Malcolm's presence, that did not mean that he had the means to help the Harmons win this battle against the Hummers. In the end, what mattered most in this competition between the two families was the quality of their product. We'll find out soon enough. Natasha did not explain any further. With a glance at her wristwatch, she turned to Dustin and nodded. He immediately got the signal and pulled out his phone to make a call. At the same time, over at the Hummers press conference. Chapter 169. Looking at the crowd in the hall, Edwin couldn't help but smile broadly. As expected, everything was going smoothly. Once the product launch was done by today, Etonamax's reputation would be spread far and wide. When that time came, his aim wouldn't be limited to Swinton but to market Etonamax throughout the 13 cities of the South. Sir Hummer. Congratulations on your launch. Quentin and his men came up to Edwin, whose face was beaming. Oh, it's Mr. Harmon. Please, have a seat, Edwin said pleasantly. Sir Hummer, Etonamax is really a precious herb. Everyone has been talking about how great it is. Look at the crowd here after hearing about its effects. It's already become so popular that people are coming in droves. Quentin flattered. If the product is good, customers will naturally return. Mr. Harmon, you also stocked up quite a bit. It seems like you're going to make a big profit this time. Edwin smiled. It's all thanks to you, Sir Hummer. We're all working together to get rich. Quentin laughed heartily. Oh, by the way, have you heard any news from Natasha? Edwin asked suddenly. Quentin's lips curled into a playful smirk. Speaking of which, there is a bit of news. I just heard that Natasha was going to hold a press conference at the same time and place as you. Oh. Is she trying to provoke me? But how come I didn't know about this? Edwin was surprised. Not only you, but I don't think anyone in Swinton knows about it. I've already checked into it, and her press conference has no one in attendance. What a joke. Quentin sneered. If there is no one there, then what's the point of her holding a press conference? Edwin asked. She probably was frustrated by you, that's why she intentionally pulled this stunt to try and stir up trouble. But now it seems like it's just backfiring on her. Quentin replied. Hey. I never expected Natasha to resort to such a foolish move. Does she really think that she can restore everything just by relying on the Harmon family's reputation? How naive. Edwin shook his head. In his heart, he couldn't help but look down on Natasha. Natasha Harmon, the so-called queen of the business world, didn't seem so impressive after all. Sir Hummer, how about we go over and witness the mockery for ourselves? Quentin extended an invitation. I have many important guests coming later, so I can't leave for now. You go ahead, and please say hello to Natasha for me, Edwin replied calmly. Okay, I'll go have some fun then. I'll let you know the details later, Quentin said and left without further ado. Soon, Quentin and Mr. Wangley arrived at the Harmon family's press conference. When they walked in, they found the hall empty, with only a few people present. Cousin, I didn't expect you to really hold a press conference. But why is no one here? What the hell are you doing? Quentin teased as he walked in. Did you not come here? Aren't you a human? Natasha replied coldly. Quentin's lips twitched, but he continued sarcastically, I see it's really empty here. Should I bring some friends over to liven up the atmosphere? Despite his words, the sneer on his lips could not be concealed. Thank you for your kindness, but it's unnecessary. My guests will arrive soon, Natasha smiled faintly. Cousin, I think you shouldn't be too stubborn. How can you compete with Edwin with such a poor showing? In my opinion, I think you should just admit your defeat, Quentin said with a smirk. Well, it seems like you're having a lot of fun. Ruth piped in angrily. Ruth, I'm doing this for your sister's own good. Rather than making an embarrassment of ourselves, we should stop our losses while we can. Like me, I've bought a ton of Etonamax so that I can make a fortune later. Quentin said confidently. You bought the Etonamax. How many did you buy? Ruth was surprised and asked tentatively. I invested all my money and took out many loans to purchase the stocks. This time, I'm going to make a killing. Quentin raised his chin proudly, waiting for them to rain praise on his intelligence and prowess. After hearing this, Ruth slapped her forehead and sighed. It's all over. Etonamax was complete garbage. It was pure stupidity for Quentin to buy so much Etonamax, moreover with money that he didn't have. What an idiot Quentin was. Chapter 170. What do you mean? Can't you speak more clearly? I'm about to make it big. Quentin rolled his eyes. With the popularity of Etonamax, making a fortune was in the bag. These guys really lacked business acumen. Sis, did you not remind our cousin not to buy Etonamax? Ruth turned her head and looked at Natasha. I did remind him, but he didn't listen. I couldn't do anything about it. Natasha shrugged. While there's still time, quickly sell all your Etonamax, even if it's at a low price. It's better than getting nothing back. Ruth advised. Sell at a low price. Are you talking nonsense? This is an opportunity for me to multiply my net worth by 10 times. How could I give up so easily? Quentin frowned. Cousin, I don't think you can increase your net worth by that much. You are more likely to go bankrupt. Don't you know that my sister has developed a new drug called amortinol? Ruth shook her head helplessly. What amortinol? I've never heard of it. Quentin sneered. Amortinol has the same benefits as Etonamax, but its medicinal properties far surpass those of Etonamax. Besides, it's even cheaper. Just think about what would happen once this drug hits the market. Ruth analyzed. HMPH. Nonsense. There's no such drug in this world that can compare to Etonamax. Do you think I'm stupid? Quentin didn't believe it at all. It's true. I've tried it myself. Ruth insisted anxiously. Quentin interrupted coldly. That's enough. Ruth, I always thought of you as an innocent child who would never lie. I did not expect that you would lie to help your sister. HMPH. If you don't believe me, then forget it. Ruth snorted and turned away without another word. It's impossible to change his mind. She had said everything she needed to say, and if he refused to listen, it was not her fault. You guys are better off thinking about how to bring more people here to liven up the atmosphere instead of worrying about my affairs. Look at this press conference, it's as empty as a ghost town. What an embarrassment. Quentin's face was cold as he spoke sarcastically. Who said we don't have any guests? Look, there they are. Natasha suddenly pointed her chin toward the door. The others followed her gaze. Several people dressed in luxurious clothing walked in, turning around as if they were looking for something. Excuse me, is Dr. Shane here? We heard that Dr. Shane has developed a medicine called amortinol, which could maintain youthfulness and increase longevity. Is it true? Of course it's true. Look, Dr. Shane is sitting on the stage. Natasha smiled and stood up. Oh. The group looked closely and their faces lit up with joy. It's really Drive, Shane. It seems like we've come to the right place. You're right. I didn't believe it at first when I heard the rumors, but it turned out to be true. They spoke excitedly to each other. After all, it was extremely difficult to meet a highly skilled expert like Dr. Shane, who was often elusive and rarely seen. Dr. Shane. Quentin was startled and turned back in surprise. On the stage, there was a fat old man who was reading a book. He hadn't paid much attention before, but upon closer inspection, he realized that the old man was none other than the famous miracle doctor, Dr. Malcolm Shane. What's going on? Did Natasha actually invite Drive? Shane. Quentin mulled it over as more guests streamed in. People were crowding into the hall to see the renowned Dr. Shane. Many of them were initially skeptical and curious. However, once they saw that it was really him, their hearts were convinced. Even without saying a word, just having Drive. Shane sit there was the best for Amortunol. Is it possible? Could Amortunol really be better than Eternamax? At first, Quentin was able to remain calm, but as more guests arrived, he couldn't help but feel nervous. After a short while, the empty hall had become lively. It's about time, let's begin. Natasha ordered the butler to bring out all of the Amortunol that had been prepared. With a smile, she stepped on stage and stood beside Drive. Shane. Ladies and gentlemen, the highlight of our press conference today is this new drug, Amortunol. This is a miraculous medicine jointly developed by Harman Pharmaceuticals and other medical experts, including Drive. Shane. Not only does this medicine improve one's longevity, but it also has anti-aging and health-promoting benefits, making it suitable for people of all genders and ages. As for its effects, you'll know after trying it. Your opinion is what matters. Natasha did not waste time and briefly introduced the Amortunol before having the butler distribute it to all of the guests. Without question, each person who was present in the hall received a pill. When everyone took the Amortunol, the entire hall erupted in excitement. Oh my God! The effect of Amortunol is amazing, isn't it? You're right. Just after taking one, my whole body is filled with energy. I have never felt so young. My goodness. Honey, your face seems to be whiter and more radiant. Even your dark circles have disappeared. Everyone was enthusiastically discussing the mind-blowing effects of the drug. Initially, many had turned up due to Dr. Shane's reputation. However, now they were completely convinced by the apparent effects of the Amortunol. I don't believe this drug could be so incredible. Seeing everyone's positive response, Quentin scoffed angrily and stuffed an Amortunol into his mouth. At that moment, he was dumbstruck. The indescribable sense of warmth spread throughout his body, strengthening his muscles and boosting his energy. This drug was really out of this world. How could this be? Quentin widened his eyes in disbelief. He had initially thought that Natasha was just bluffing. He didn't expect that in just a few days, Natasha had actually developed a new medicine. In addition, the effects of Amortunol far exceeded those of Eternamax. Realizing this, Quentin suddenly turned pale and turned to Mr. Wangerly. Mr. Wangerly. Hurry up and sell the Eternamax at a low price. Sell them all. Don't leave a single one. If we don't sell them right now, we're done for.